Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for November 7th. If we can all rise and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So again, thank you to everybody for coming. First thing that we're going to do is approve the minutes from last month. So we'll take a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 5th,
October 3rd.
Yeah.
October 3rd of 2017.
Correct.
With the amended, I was even trying to get to, with the amended date on the minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you. Levy? Yes. Bringle?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Giannoni?
I will abstain from that vote. So, okay. Due to my absence last month, if in case anybody's wondering. So, moving right along, first item, well, I guess, Neva, these are both on you then, huh?
Yep. All right, you guys ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. So applicant Eric Neeler with Pacheco Ross Architects, authorized representatives for the Cortez Fire Protection District, has applied to the city for a special exception for a 4x8 monument sign with electronic messaging. As proposed, the portion of the sign will be set back from the eastern property line by 6.8 feet with a 3.2 foot encroachment. The land use code requires signs to be set back 10 feet from all property lines. The sign as placed would be placed approximately 22 feet back from the curb at Washington Street. So on the screen in front of you, you can see the approved site plan for the fire station under construction right now. The sign was proposed to go on the northeast corner of the lot facing the neighborhood. The sign is a pretty large electronic message sign that would be facing residents. The fire station proposes to move it to the southeast corner facing the businesses in Main Street. And in order to place the sign, they will have to encroach 3.2 feet on the setback for that eastern property line. The special exceptions are granted by the commission where all of the following conditions are met. That there are unique physical circumstances or conditions that are particular to the affected property. Between the landscaping requirements and the size of the building, the site does present challenges to relocating the sign. The new placement of the sign would position the sign away from all residential structures and toward Main Street and commercial businesses, a position which the city does favor. Condition 2, the unusual circumstances or conditions do not exist throughout the neighborhood or district in which the property is located. The fire station is located in the central business district with a mix of residential and commercial uses nearby. The fire station does have unique needs and conditions which are not found throughout the neighborhood. Condition 3, that because of such such physical circumstances or conditions, the property cannot be reasonably developed. The lot has been developed in conformity with the provisions of Land Use Code Chapter 6, with the exception of the sign placement. Condition 4, that such unnecessary hardship has not been created by the applicant. The fire department is responding to concerns for the neighborhood character. Responding to that particular concern leaves little room to navigate within the confines of the remaining land available on site. Condition 5, that the exception, if granted, is the minimal exception that will afford relief and is the least modification possible. The setback requirement of 10 feet from the property line will be met on the south side of the south property line. The encroachment of the sign is a minimum exception. As I mentioned before, it is still 22 feet back from the curb, so it will not interfere with the sight distance triangle for the alleyway and the parking situation. Let's see, condition 6, that the exception, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The approved sign location may actually affect the character of the neighborhood due to an electronic message board facing residences. Staff believes the proposed location facing existing commercial businesses in Main Street will keep the character of the neighborhood intact and will not impair use or development of any of the adjacent properties.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? Not right now. All right, we do have some representatives here from the fire department. Would either of you guys or anybody that is representing the fire department like to stand up and say a few words? If we can have you come right over here to the podium, that'd be great. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks. There's three reasons why we want to locate the sign is we think we'd be better suited facing Main Street for one, because we do advertise for CPR classes. If there's a red flag warning, it'd be more visible for people going by. Two, like you just said, is, my concern was facing the residential area. It's not a big residential area that surrounds us, but they have flashing sign all the time. And the third thing I look at is north in Washington Street there. There's a stop sign that goes east and west, and then the cars don't have a stop sign. I think that flashing sign would be kind of disruptive to cars in that intersection. Somebody stopping and looking and taking a look at the sign and maybe not seeing a car coming because they don't have a stop sign that way. So I think it'd be better suited away from that area just because of the intersection, the residential area, and be more visible towards Main Street.
Perfect. Thank you. I do have a couple of questions. Just the way this regulation reads, requiring that we meet all 6 items to grant the variance. With regards to the third condition, sorry, now I'm going to have to scroll up here. I have technology. That because of such physical circumstances, conditions, the property cannot be reasonably developed in conformity with the provisions. I saw on the map or the site plan that there's a 6-foot gap between the building and the edge of the sign. Is there any way that you could push the sign a little closer to the building, maybe to make up some more?
We were just looking at face the sign so it was in a good position to face out. That building kind of goes and it kind of goes in. So it'd be kind of located back in a cove if we had to go back into that area. So that's why I kind of wanted to push it to just the edge of the building where it comes out that way. Okay. And then actually the electric is run right there for the flagpole was going to go there with the light, and then we're just kind of flip-flop the flagpole to the other area and then the sign over there, just because, like I said, better visibility for people on Main Street, and again, just so it's not flashing and, bright at night and stuff, and, the residential area that's there. And like I said, small residential area, but you still don't want, your neighbors being, inconvenienced because of that. So just the way the building is configured, and it kind of goes in, you put it back in that cove and it not be visible at all.
Okay. What about a smaller sign then? Is 4 by 8? Could you make it smaller? Maybe 4 by 6 or something to.
This is kind of the standard type sign. It's not overly large one and stuff. It's basically was kind of designed to fit the base that Luminucci is going to put there.
Okay, perfect. Okay. I will say that looking at the layout, it obviously makes much more sense to have the sign on the side, the south side of the property rather than facing towards the neighborhood. And if I lived on that block, yeah, I'd be pretty upset having a flashing beacon shining into my
Yeah,
bedroom.
the light pollution alone would be enough for me to.
So I do think that that it does make more sense to have the sign on that side. That being said, I just the having to meet all the requirements is just so restrictive to me. But that's my thought. I do think that it makes a lot of sense to have it over there. So, do we have any other thoughts for the applicant? Final thoughts for staff?
Staff doesn't make any recommendations on this project. However, I did add a condition that any of the landscaping removed for the sign be replaced elsewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chief. Now, at this time, do we have anybody here that would like to stand up and speak either for or against the item before us? No? All right. We'll close the floor and bring it back to the commission. We'll take a motion.
I'll actually make a motion to approve the request for special exception for sign location at 31 North Washington Street. If the Cortez Fire Protection District shall ensure any landscaping displaced, submitted, or removed due to the new location of the monument, sign will be replaced elsewhere on site.
I'll second.
Butler,
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
Ringel,
Yes?
Giannoni.
All right. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Have a good night.
All right. Moving on.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'll remember that for my next staff report. I was thinking about you. All right, one moment. I cannot speak and find my place at the same time, so let me set this up.
You want me to set the timer on you?
No.
2 minutes and 30 seconds remaining.
Kenny, you want to slide your binder over to her?
Yeah.
Okay, graphics up. All right. Okay. Chris and Lori Hutton have applied to the city to rezone their parcel located at the northeast corner of Mildred and Empire. The parcel is .39 acres in size and is currently vacant. The zoning is multifamily residential, R2. The applicants have proposed to establish a small coffee shop, farmer's market, and greenhouse on the parcel. The land use code does not allow for restaurants and markets in R2. Without a principal structure, accessory structures are not allowed, including greenhouses, storage sheds, or ramadas. The surrounding uses in the vicinity include residential to the east and north, parks to the south, Osprey headquarters to the west, and the old Montezuma Courts building to the southwest. Directly west of the parcel is a vacant lot in the Montezuma County PUD. There have been no uses proposed for the vacant lot. However, the PUD specifies uses for development by the city for business offices, high-tech businesses, conference facilities, and/or municipal or governmental facilities. I did an aerial review of the property going back to the 1950s. It shows this lot has been vacant for at least the past 20 years, if not much longer. At one point, there was a small structure on the property that local residents have told me they, at one time, remember there was a small convenience type store on the lot. I haven't been able to confirm that. The 1980 zoning map had this area zoned for residential and professional services. The Land Use Code, Chapter 6.02, contains several review criteria for considering rezoning a property. Okay, so criteria 1, the land to be zoned was zoned in error, and as presently zoned is inconsistent with the policies and goals of the city's comp plan. The land does not appear to be zoned in error. While there's nothing precluding the development of this parcel in a manner consistent with the current zoning, there are several policies and goals that rezoning may accomplish. And that includes, you know, I've listed all the policies. I'm not going to read them verbatim. So criteria 2, the area for which rezoning is requested has changed or is changing to such a degree that it is in public interest to encourage redevelopment of the area. The area of the proposed rezoning has seen increased development activity in recent years, including the development of Osprey headquarters, the new municipal courts building, and a major hospital expansion. I did mention before that the aerial search of the property shows the property has been vacant for well over 20 years. A rezoning may allow for more options for use of the property. Criteria 3, the proposed rezoning is necessary in order to provide land for a use which was not anticipated at the time of the city's comp plan. In this case, the rezoning is not necessary to provide a use not anticipated at the time of the comp plan. So that does not apply to this. In reviewing the application for rezoning, the commission must also go over items A through G in the staff report. Was the property zoned in error? It does not appear the existing zone was adopted in error. The multifamily residential zoning is consistent with the area. Even in 1980, it was zoned for a higher density, as well as for public facilities. Has there been a change in character in the area? Yes, there has been some change of character in the area. It includes some of the recent developments that I just went over. There are several vacant lots within the adjacent PUD with a variety of development options allowed in that zone. For the most part, we don't have any idea what may be going in the future. Is there a need for the proposed rezoning within the area or community? There are vacant commercial properties throughout the city. The applicants did feel this was the best location for their business considering the growth in the area. D, are the proposed uses compatible with surrounding area or uses, and will there be adverse impacts? The proposed zoning may be compatible with surrounding uses, as the surrounding and nearby uses are offices, parks, residential, public facilities. There may, of course, be adverse traffic impacts, as that intersection is one of the busiest in the city. The proposed commercial use may be made compatible with the neighborhood. Plans to minimize the structure height, providing landscaping beyond what is required, keeping parking primarily on the west and south away from the residents. Some site planning issues may be used to mitigate the adverse impacts associated with the typical commercial use. However, the site plan review is the only mechanism the city has to review site design, and if it does get rezoned to neighborhood business, there is a variety of uses which may go in. Will there be benefits derived by the community or area by granting the proposed rezoning? The farmers market and a small restaurant would provide a convenient service for the neighborhood and nearby businesses. The rezoning would also allow for expansion of local business, which is heavily encouraged in the city's comp plan. Item F, are there adequate facilities available to serve development for the type and scope suggested? Adequate facilities are available on site with the utilities already in place or easily obtainable. G, is the proposal in conformance with the policy, intents, and requirements of the City of Cortez comp plan? With regards to the economic development, this proposal does fit in with many of the directions outlined in the City of Cortez comp plan. However, spot zoning in a residential area does conflict with the land use code, as well as several housing goals included in the comp plan. So, of course, there are positives and negatives to this. proposal. Does the proposed change constitute a spot zoning? And yes, proposed zoning change to neighborhood business would constitute a spot zoning. There is no neighborhood business in the nearby vicinity. And then I did list all of the allowable uses in the neighborhood zoning districts compared to, or the neighborhood business district compared to what's allowed in R2 already. So while there's a general plan in place for the development of the property at this time, a zoning decision would allow for the development of any of the businesses that are permitted in the neighborhood business zone. This may include uses which may be incompatible with the existing neighborhood, and however, on-site circumstances such as location, drainage, access may also limit the type of use that can be established on the property. In accordance with our regulations, this was sent out for review to all of the city departments and affected utilities. There were no concerns with the utilities or departments. There were some considerations that would fall under our site plan review, and at which time would be addressed at any time a development would occur on this site. So no comments were received from any of our neighbors at this location. The commission has two alternatives, either recommend approval or deny the request. So I would ask now if you guys have any questions or comments on this.
I do have one question. The applicants are proposing to put in a coffee shop and a farmer's market, right?
Yes.
So would that fall under, is that a restaurant? Is that considered a restaurant?
The coffee shop would be considered a restaurant.
Okay. So rezoning into neighborhood business under recreational and entertainment uses, or I'm sorry, where is it? Oh, no, it is. Recreational and entertainment uses, restaurant or bar is not allowed in the neighborhood business district. So if we rezone this to neighborhood business, the applicants are still not going to be able to put in a coffee shop there.
No, that's true. Yeah.
And maybe this is a question more for the applicant, but what does farmer's market mean? Is that produce and what I would think farmer's market means, or is it trinkets and decor items that, that I didn't actually look at I believe the retail indoors is under a conditional use permit, if I remember correctly.
No.
Retail indoors is not allowed either.
Yep.
In neighborhood business. So,
Right. Well, so far they've been doing a farmer's market on the weekends with just produce, and from what I understand, that will continue. Unless their plans have changed, they did speak to us about putting up some sort of a ramada or something to house the farmer's market. But they're not going to be allowed to put anything up without a primary use on the property.
mm-hmm.
So going to neighborhood business would allow them to put something up for the business.
And I mean, when I read this list of permitted or conditional uses to rezone it as neighborhood business,
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily have a problem with any of them. I'm fine with all of them, but I don't think it accomplishes the whole purpose of the applicant coming here to get it rezoned in the first place.
Right.
They want to put a restaurant there, we rezone it to neighborhood business. Sorry, tough luck. It's not allowed there, so.
Well, what if we're looking at neighborhood commercial? Is there, what would be the restrictions then as opposed to? Let's see deal.
I would like to get clarification on what neighborhood commercial means.
I would too, yes, me too.
All right, we'll see if there's a
I don't have
definition
my
for
land
that.
use code book. That's a good catch on that, Commissioner.
All right, neighborhood commercial.
Thank you.
Well, I think that might actually fit the coffee shop. Neighborhood commercial uses mean retail establishments primarily serving residents within the immediate neighborhood, oriented and designed toward pedestrian traffic, such as bakeries, florists, drugstores, and stationery stores.
I think that fits the needs better than the restaurant or bar that we were looking at before. Since restaurant or bar, according to our current land use code, is a no-go anyway.
Right. I mean, if that satisfies, if a coffee shop satisfies, I know there are certain differences between a bakery and a full-service restaurant. That was one of the things with the brewery that we wanted to make sure as well. So, right now, does anybody else have any other thoughts for staff right now?
I have one question. I noticed that under public comment section, that the property owners adjacent to the property in question were notified of this pending.
They were.
Have you heard anything back from them?
I have not. So all the property owners within 300 feet of the center of the property were notified, and I have not heard. I didn't receive any letters back. Sometimes you get return to sender. Nor did I receive a single comment. So they all went where they were supposed to go.
And that's a question I want to ask you guys too
Yeah.
when the time comes.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, I do want to hear that also. Becky, you had some thoughts?
You know, when I was going over this, I was more concerned about the spot zoning issue. And I guess, though, what brought to mind for me was that it's directly adjacent to a PUD, which is kind of a hybrid. So it's not necessarily, well, I don't know. There's still residential allowed in neighborhood business in that zone district, so it wouldn't eliminate that. And I've seen a lot of times places that have mixed-use zoning have these little kind of pod areas in communities where just a couple of lots on the corners of kind of busier intersections would be allowed to have a mixed-use type, which I see neighborhood business is falling into that category where that has been allowed in other communities. But yeah, I don't know about precedent setting. So that's something to think about, and I guess maybe if we were going in that direction, I wouldn't mind having the attorney's opinion, if that's too, you know, if it keeps going in that direction.
And see, I had that same thought about the spot zoning thing, but I kind of went down the same line that you're going, well, the PUD is right across the street. So it is, to me, it's still, yeah, there's a street there, but it's still,
with the change,
yeah, it's
yeah.
still
And
pretty
that's-
close,
and that's
so.
a heavily trafficked street with a lot of businesses, I mean, well, public service entities in that
Right.
residential zone district anyway. So,
With a lot of plans for offices and
yeah.
other possible retail locations in the future too.
Yeah, so I guess it just seems like it's a little bit more of a gray area than like if it was a straight out commercial surrounded by a totally, you know, a zone district that had no boundaries other than just being totally residential. But the fact that it's next to parks and open space and a PUD and another PUD, and you know, it just seems like it might be a little bit less restrictive as far as just zoning one lot in one block area. But that would be a good question, I guess, for the attorney, to even see if it makes sense from a legal perspective.
I guess one of the biggest problems I have with it it goes against the land use code that we've been working on for 3 or 4 years. Spot zoning is definitely one of the items that the land use code is definitely against. Also, rezoning of property is not advocated. Any of the rezoning that I have read, I'm all for economic development and new businesses, but so far we've pretty much restricted it to the central business district. You can extend the boundaries of the central business district if it starts filling up and there's just no more room. Mm-hmm. But we have a lot of space within the central business district right now that is available for new businesses. So I definitely have a problem with the spot zoning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I agree with those concerns. Spot zoning is not, it's not something, every time that we've talked about rezoning anything, that's always one of the first things that we talk about. But again, I think to me, having that PUD right across the street, the open space to the south, the other building, the whatever it is now, the old courthouse, is it just vacant now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I see the argument that it is still congruent, like Kenny was talking about, with the rest of the area. But I did have another question with rezoning to neighborhood business. Is one of the advantages of the neighborhood business district is that it kind of creates that buffer zone between residential, strictly residential use, and more like CBD type stuff. Mm-hmm. Is there any kind of like hour of operation limitation on neighborhood business? Because with it being right next door to homes.
Right, yeah, I looked that up. 11 o'clock. Yes, sorry.
11 in the PM?
Yeah, in the PM.
Okay.
It's, I think, the extent of, and then there was something about 9 PM for other types of uses that are allowed. I mean, you know, I think that, you know, changing the zoning there from residential would kind of promote some things that are in the comprehensive plan as goals, such as, you know, more pedestrian scale amenities, especially now that you have more workforce out in that area of town. Them being able to access a service by walking to it, I think is something that would be a great asset to the community for that. It would reduce traffic during lunch hour. I think there are some big pluses to rezoning that property. It's just the legality of it that I just would love a second opinion on, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and regardless of what decision you make, we can have Mike look into that, our city attorney, for sure.
What about rezoning it into a PUD, since there's already a PUD across the street?
I was thinking the same thing, actually. Then you don't have a congruency issue. The only thing separating the PUDs would be the street itself. What is under what legal definition would we be operating then, and would that be possible? Would we need to, again, have Mike look at that?
Yeah, and I'm not sure it would fit with the goals of that particular PUD. That's pretty specific. Mm-hmm. And that PUD also, if you remember, with the courts in Osprey, have a lot of development
Yeah, they gotta
guidelines.
fit like, they gotta fit like 6 of 18 things.
Yeah.
Design-wise.
Design-wise, there's also some
I mean, I
additional
just threw
setback
those numbers out there,
requirements
but.
that this lot may not be able to meet for that PUD.
Are there other PUDs allowed in the town? Are there commercial PUDs that you could do as opposed to being, I mean, instead of it joining the neighboring PUD, it's its own PUD with its own set of guidelines and restrictions just for that lot?
That's probably something we can look into.
Okay.
I don't
Okay, yeah.
I don't have an answer for you right now on that.
Do we have any other quick thoughts right now? Okay, would you guys like to stand up and talk about what your plan is for this spot? You know, why you're looking to have it rezoned? I mean, it's not a requirement. You don't have to. So,
Absolutely.
please state your name and your address too. Not that anybody actually does that.
Hi, I'm Chris Hutton, and this is my wife Lori. Really what we would like to do, we both have about 30 years in the food industry. And we operated a farm market there on the property this summer. And we have been working with Neva and the city on a mobile food vending, and Melissa at the county health department. And we intend to go live with that pretty soon. And our intent with the property is to try to make it kind of a neighborhood niche where we can, you know, be a place where people can go and, you know, hang out and get lunch and get fresh produce and, you know, like you said, walk to the area. We want it to be a vibrant little kind of a corner, a hub. We're both artisans, so we would like to be able to have, you know, some artwork and different things from a tourism standpoint to be able to bring in, you know, more economics to the area. But we have the food background, so we're very, very interested in that, growing our own produce, bringing produce from the state of Colorado and the local areas. And so that's really what we'd like to do. It was our understanding that we originally wanted to go commercial, but we were kind of talked into the neighborhood business because of the central business district, and we don't want to be, you know, McDonald's. You know, we both kind of lived that game for 30 years, so we understand what it takes, but that's really not our intent. So we're concerned about the traffic. We're concerned about being a good neighbor. So many of the things that you mentioned, the hours of operation, you know, noise, those kinds of things are a concern for us. But that's really what we would like to do. We'd like to have, you know, kind of a farm market where we have fresh vegetables, local vegetables, allow other people to come in and work with us. We'd like to be able to have a small greenhouse area where we can service other needs for the community. And then it was our understanding that if we served coffee, then we had to have a commercial kitchen. And so that was hence why we felt like we had to go to that neighborhood business step in order to prepare coffee because of the county health requirements. So that's kind of our ideas. Lori?
Summarized it good, but that's, we're just kind of envisioning just that small little community, you know, within the neighborhood, kind of like the smaller, you know, with the farm, kind of the grocery store kind of thing for the fresh eating, and just make it a nice little walking thing for everybody that's around the perimeter there.
So I've got, I have two thoughts for you. First, the first thought that I have is maybe a little bit premature, but with you guys, I mean, you're the owners of the property, so if we were to rezone this as neighborhood business, one of the requests is to put some sort of screening between you guys and the neighbors. Do you have any thought? Have you given any thought to that? What you might do to try to shield your neighbors, both visually and from the noise?
That's a great question, and I think we have talked to Tony, which is our neighbor to the east there, Antonio, And he has a 6-foot fence on the back of his property, but he uses our property kind of as a secondary driveway. And we told him that was fine, you know, we're good neighbors, and you've been doing that a good long time, and we don't have an issue with it. And at such time that we, you know, develop the property or build, you know, we would work out some kind of a deal. But, you know, whether we plant vegetation, one of the things that we talked to Neva and Tracy and Sam about was vacating the alley in the back because it's really not used. So we could do something there, I think, to kind of shield that. I don't think our business vision would carry a lot of noise, but we'd certainly be respectful that, you know, we don't want to create more issues for them, for sure.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. And I'm also concerned with the future impacts because, you know, I mean, who knows how long you guys will own and operate that business. And, you know, again, going back to that table, if it gets rezoned as neighborhood business, we have to be okay with any one of those things that go in there. And so that's also my concern is also future uses. The other question that I had, which you kind of touched on a little bit there, NEVA hasn't gotten any letters back, any comments back, but have you yourself talked with any of your neighbors, and what input have they given you?
Since the posting, we've not talked to any of the neighbors. We did talk to quite a few of them in the summer when we were doing the farm market, and they were very pleased, and they came over and we introduced ourselves and vice versa. We understand the gentleman that's directly north of us has an interest because he would like to do a different kind of business for his property, and we met the couple that was living in his house, and they were remodeling it for him. But we haven't personally met him, so I don't want to, add conjecture there. But we've not had any detrimental comments or conversations beyond that.
Okay.
We met quite a few of the neighbors that came and bought produce from us, and they were, I guess, some of the comments were, it'd be nice to see something happen on the corner, because it has been vacant for so long. And so we didn't have anything negative.
Okay. Did anybody else have any thoughts for the applicants? Any questions? Thank you guys very much. All right, at this time, we will go ahead and open up the floor to public comment. Anybody? All right, so we'll close the floor, bring it back over to the commission. I would really like to be, I would really like to have peace with the fact that rezoning neighborhood business is going to allow the coffee shop. And it sounds, I mean, it is going to be allowed. Mm-hmm. So, and if that means they want to start offering biscuits and muffins, do they still qualify? At what point does it change from the neighborhood commercial use to a restaurant?
Or retail service establishments also conditional in neighborhood business. And I think that even fits better than both the other two.
Yeah, but retail general indoors is not. So, I mean,
there's going to be some amount of limitation due to the size of the lot and the parking requirements that a restaurant would require as opposed to a smaller, like, boutique.
Right, and I mean, I'm just saying, like, where's that cutoff? I don't want them to say, hey, let's start selling breakfast burritos, and oh, nope, sorry, we can't. I'm not saying that Denny's is going to eventually move in there. I'm just saying for the applicant specifically, at what point does it stop being the one and switch over to the other?
Yeah, well, that's one of the risks that we take by opening it up into neighborhood business, is that at any point it could be under new ownership and new use. As far as how we determine what's a bakery and what's a restaurant, that I actually don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other thoughts, final thoughts for staff?
Well, bakery is not defined here, so, I mean,
Yeah.
it
I
sounds
see
to
that
me
as
like
a-
a coffee shop with some pastries and grab-and-go items.
Again, I fell back to, it looks to me like retail service
It's a
establishment.
bakery.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I just,
Conditional use and
I just don't want there to be,
Right.
you know,
Right.
yeah, and I agree with you right now. I really do. I think it fits fine with the neighborhood commercial.
And anything that is a conditional use, the commission and city council does have the authority to limit operating hours because it is a conditional use. So,
Well, and that's a whole different bag of cats there, because
Yeah.
neighborhood commercial is not conditional, it is permitted. So,
right.
So if we make a motion to recommend the approval, can we put a condition that it be reviewed by city attorney
Yes.
before proceeding
Yep.
forward?
Yeah.
Because the
Now-
last thing I really want to do is slow down the process and prevent time to market. I know that's a big factor for those trying to start,
Right.
businesses and any kind of enterprise. And so, last thing I want to do is get held up here and then have to review the same thing over again for
Right.
something that could be simply addressed by someone.
Yeah,
that
and
is-
we can specifically ask Mike that question. We did have a conversation about this project, and he mentioned concerns about traffic, but he did not mention any legal issues they had, but it would be a good thing to specifically direct his thoughts to looking at that. Yeah. So we can-
now that you mention it, I have a concern about the traffic, but is right now the appropriate time to bring that up?
I think the overall picture, yes, but specifically, we can't.
Well, here's a question
I
that-
did speak to Phil Johnson about, the ingress and egress, and he said it would be difficult to work with, but he could get a traffic flow worked out in this area, so, for that project.
So I guess a futuristic question that I have for Mr. Shane Hale over there is there plans, because we knew at some point this is going to have to become monitored by a light at some point. The traffic there is getting, especially in the mornings, is so thick through there. So I'm curious, has there been any discussion, or is there anything in the plans for a light being on Mildred and Empire anytime soon?
No plans to put a light that,
Okay.
probably a better solution for us to be around about, do something that,
Good point.
well, just it,
Cortez's first.
Madam Mayor?
It's true.
you know, right, yeah, but there are no plans to put in around about either, Stephanie,
He's not in front of a microphone.
you know, at a traffic light, I mean, those could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, so it probably would be that intersection with something else. Right now, because the Justice Center is facing all the traffic from the beginning at Justice Center across the street, I don't know if that's actually drive a lot of traffic there. And then Osprey isn't really a, 8 o'clock show up for work kind of place, for a little bit more free spirit that means people are not necessarily just punching the clock at 8 a.m. So, and easy to get food. Unfortunately, parking kind of places, some people ride a bike, some people take transportation together. So, so far, that intersection, is bad. Basically, if you go to between 7:30 and 8 in the morning, back up. If you go to 4:40, 5:30 at night, back up, and it's just kind of slow back. We haven't seen anything that I've noticed in the decrease, the town is not clear off time now. Or I was talking about in the mayor, is I think that, what's really affecting the hospital, I've heard 3 minutes to get through the intersection. We really start seeing people back up, and it's more than just being new in this time. It seems ongoing that I think, when people want to be here, different. So.
Well, I don't want to digress on the point that we're trying to address here. I just wanted to know, because it does have to do with the ingress, egress, and the traffic there.
Well, and I think it does, it needs to be in the thought process, not, we don't need to do anything about it now, put a light up now, but, there 3-4 times, I mean, half a dozen times, how many times have we talked about some sort of commercial entity going in that area, either in the hospital PUD or in the I'll call it the Osprey PUD. I know it's not theirs, but there's been a lot going on over there. So I do think it needs to be in the planning.
And the business center does sell. It's certainly great on its own open, basically be a park. So I assume the community press to do from that. But that's sort of some sort of commercial sort of that. So say I'm a little aware of it, we can see, really what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Future growth. Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you. Okay.
Anything?
I mean, I don't think that they're going to be driving a ton of traffic just to their place.
No.
Via cars and increasing it to create a major impact on the residential neighborhood. So I
If anything, at lunchtime, it might decrease traffic.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too.
No, and that's, I drive home that way every day, and spot on the money. I mean, it's morning and 5 o'clock. Every other time of day that I drive past there, it's fine. So, if we have no other further discussion on this topic,
Well,
we
my
will.
only concern, I just want to say this one more time, we've already touched on it once before, is the spot zoning issue on this. But with, the conversation coming into recent light, possibly open in the future, being rezoned anyway with the sale of the old Justice Building and the PUD with commercial use across the street, I don't see it would be a problem, but I would like to add that if we move to make a motion to make, obviously that all legal arrangements have been made to review this before it goes in front of council.
And I'll take that a step further. I actually see zoning it as neighborhood business a benefit for those neighbors, because it creates, instead of just a hard cutoff of a house to, a commercial use, it buffers it to where it transitions more smoothly. So, I don't have a problem with this at all, so.
Okay.
So we'll take a motion.
Well, and with that, I'll make the motion to recommend to City Council approval of the request to rezone lots 1 through 5 in the west 17.2 of Lot 6, Block 1 of the Cornett subdivision, 1002 East Mildred, from residential multifamily R2 to neighborhood business, as submitted by owners Chris and Lori Hutton, through the approval of P&Z Resolution Number 15, Series 2017, with 5 conditions. I'm going to actually make that 6 conditions, that it be reviewed by city attorney, and recommend approval of ordinance number 1233, series 2017, changing the city of Cortez zoning map to reflect said zoning.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Pringle,
Yes.
Butler,
No.
Levy,
Yes.
Giannoni.
Aye. Okay, thank you, guys. Now, at this point, Madam Mayor, would you like to stand up, say anything? just in general, you got any thoughts or anything you're just dying to say?
Sage advice?
Okay. All right, anybody else? Any other public comments? No?
Yes.
To have this whole packet run by Shane Green, the Mike Green. I'm thinking Shane Hale. Mike Green, to make sure that it fits with all the legal aspects of spot zoning and things of that nature. Make sure that we're covered.
And the additional 5 should be the ones that you would have a handout for, that requirements of utility providers, city departments, additional exterior lighting, those things that should have been presented to you at the time that you presented this.
Right, yeah. So I emailed that packet to you guys last week?
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
and so it's on page 9. And they are the basic conditions that all our staff reports have. Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
Now,
Yeah.
before we adjourn this evening, Rachel did notify all of us via email that she was going to be in training. So, and she notified us at least a couple weeks ago. So I would like to take a motion to excuse Rachel.
I so move.
I'll second.
Levy,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Pringle,
Yes.
Giannoni.
Aye. And one more thought, the potential exists for next month, if we don't have a meeting, we might have a conflict in January's meeting. Last year we gave the staff that first Tuesday of the year off because it was literally the day after a holiday. And we're going to have the same problem this year. The first is on Monday, and the second is supposed to be our meeting. That makes it pretty difficult for staff to put together everything and be prepared. So I'd like to have at least a short discussion on maybe pushing our meeting back to, would be probably the 19th? Does that look? Oh, you're looking at December.
Oh, January, sorry.
Yeah, 16th. Does anybody have a problem with that?
I don't think that far ahead, so that's fine.
So can we take a motion on that?
I know.
Hey, man, I like my plans, okay? I set my vacations like
You're that guy.
6 months in advance, you know?
And it does look like we're having a meeting in December. A project did come in.
Okay.
So
Well, but anyways, I brought it up. Let's just vote on it
Is
now.
that December 5th, which should be our next meeting?
Yep.
I'm gonna let you guys know in advance, I will not be here. So,
Okay, thanks.
I will be out of town.
I don't think I heard Kenny say anything then, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be an unexcused absence.
Give me my pink slip. We'll see you guys later.
No call, no show. But for January, nobody has a problem with it. Can we just make a motion and pass that real quick?
So I'm so moved. Let's have a second.
I'll second it.
So we're moving it from the 3rd to the 16th.
Second.
Second to the 16th, yeah.
Okay, the 2nd. Thank you. Butler,
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
Think about that one for a minute, huh? Aye.
Giannoni.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. We are adjourned.
My ADD kicked in there for a second.